To create our vendor group, we'll first log into our build space page, click at maintenance, click at vendor management, click at external vendor groups. So here you can see the list of vendor groups which have been created, and you can still create more if you need to by clicking add over here. So you click add and we have to fill in our details for our external vendor groups. For example, let's say my vendor group, I want to put in the code as V101, and then we can input our vendor type, either it's default, contractor, consultant, or supplier, and then we input our name. So let's say I want to put in consultant Sabah, for example, and then click save. So once you click save, you'll be able to see the recently created vendor groups over here. So we have consultant Sabah, we have code, the name, the target here. It will indicate how many numbers are you targeting to have for this vendor group, and then vendors here will be indicating how many vendors have actually been registered under this vendor group. Okay, so if you scroll to the right here, you can still do the editing. So let's say you want to edit any the code or name, you can still do so by clicking edit. Right? Okay, so now once we have our vendor groups, we will have to create our vendor categories also. So we click at the name of this vendor group. Okay, so here you will see it as blank since it's a newly created vendor group. So what we have to do is we just click add over here, and then we can input our vendor categories. So we can input our vendor category, for example, let's say V101.1, and then the name is, let's say I want to have my vendor group for architect here. Sorry, vendor categories for architect, and then we input our target. So target here indicates how many people are you targeting to have, or how many vendors are you targeting to have for these vendor categories. Okay, we click save. So from here, you can see your vendor categories, architect, the code, target number, vendors here indicating the actual number, the vendor work categories, which I will show on how to link to our vendor work categories. Scroll to the right. Under action here, the blue button here is to edit, and the purple button here is actually to assign vendor work categories. So there's two ways to assign vendor work categories. Either you want to click at the button here, or you can just simply click at the name here. So we can easily click at architect, for example. Okay, so it will be blank at first, and we can just click update here. Okay, so once you click update, you can see the list of vendor work categories already created inside your build space. But do not use this list. We will have to create a separate or a new vendor work categories for our architect under consultant Sabah. So we just click action, click add. So let's say my code is VWC 101.1, and name is, let's say, architect for building works, for example. Okay, and then we click save. Right, so system wise, you will have to have specific vendor work categories for the vendor categories and for the vendor group also. Okay, so that means each vendor categories that you have recently created, you will have to create one vendor work category specifically for that vendor category. So it will be something like this, right? So to go back, we can just go back to consultant Sabah, for example. Okay, here you can see architect with the vendor work categories building works. Okay, if let's say you also have quantity surveyor for building works, that means you have to click add here, V101.2, for example, name, let's say quantity surveyor, target is also 15, for example, click save. So we have the quantity surveyor here. Now we have to do the vendor work categories. So we click at the name, click update, and then go to actions and click add. So we have VWC 101.2 building works, and then I click save. Right, so we go back to consultant Sabah to have a look. Right, that means you will have to cater for one work categories for each of the vendor categories. Okay, and system wise you will be able to key in the same name for your vendor work categories to cater for your vendor categories here. Okay, so that's how you create your vendor groups, your vendor categories, and also your vendor work categories, and how the linking is being done. Right, so scroll to the right, you can see the target vendor here is going to indicate how many vendors actually registered, then they will see the numbers over here.